You're just tired, man. I'm sorry. I get it. But you're not putting in the legwork to actually make a third party viable. You're not. So stop telling people to vote third party. Stop it. It's not going to work. And until I see you putting in that footwork, I'm going to keep telling you to stop saying that. If you don't want to vote, that's your deal. But for the love of God, at least tell your fans it's important that they all vote. All right? It has oft been said, vote blue no matter who. Vote blue no matter who. We've heard that how many times in the past? It's to the point where it's annoying. It sounds like liberal shit, right? Nobody really wants to hear that. The least of all leftists, Bernie bros, what have you. Nonetheless, I stand by the sentiment. I think it is important to vote for the less fascist person, okay? The lesser evil, if you will. I do think that that is a good thing to do. I'm worried about the growing number of people that I see talking about how they won't vote Democrat anymore. If you don't vote Republican anymore and you're a Republican, great. Hey, stick it to the man, you know? Like, I'm all for that. But if you're a liberal, leftist, Democrat, whatever you want to call it, please vote Democrat, please. We need to stave off fascism, right? That's the biggest thing right now. And Donald Trump is a populist who will go along with fascist rhetoric if it gets him back into the office. He's also just trying to stay out of jail, so it is going to be very important for him to win the election if he wants to do that. Barring that, let's say that it's not Donald Trump and it's Ron DeSantis that Biden ends up running against, or Kamala, God forbid, ends up running against. I would still vote for both Biden and or Kamala over DeSantis any day of the week, because DeSantis is a fascist. He's an out and open fascist, and he enjoys torture, in case you didn't know. He very much enjoyed torturing people at Guantanamo Bay and overseeing that. It was not something that I would have wanted to be there for. So let's talk about TJ's takes. I've already watched the video. I have some notes on it. I can't stand torture. Many people are saying that torture is a bad thing. Been in Florida for 3 years now and it's a goddamn mess. I've heard that many a person is leaving Florida. Many a business is leaving Florida. It's not great. Anyway, let's get into this video.
When it comes to elections, especially when it comes to presidential elections, I've kind of been all over the place. I have been, maybe you could use the term erratic. You certainly shouldn't use the term erotic. I haven't been doing anything untoward in the voting booth or anything like that. Well, maybe I have, because in 2004, I voted for John Kerry.
I had someone ask me who I'm watching. Okay, tell them you're watching the best, the most handsomest man alive.
Because I kind of hoped it would stop the Bush war machine, What a more innocent time. Back when all it was is like Bush is evil and anything other than Bush must be good. Despite the fact that I hated John Kerry. Well, it's kind of unfair to say I hated John Kerry, because that would be having an emotion about John Kerry, and that's kind of impossible. In 2008, I supported Obama, but I didn't vote.
Yeah, I don't even remember who John Kerry is. I don't know. I was like a fetus at the time, practically. I was like 8 or something. But yeah, I don't remember anything about John Kerry. He did not really make any waves, and I haven't heard anything about him recently, so who gives a shit about John Kerry?
I've always said it was kind of because there was a problem in my registration, but I guess a long enough time has passed, I could tell you the truth. I was kind of just too lazy to do it. I didn't want to admit that, because a lot of time people who don't vote are just said, like, we're just too lazy. Well, I was. But it was also, in fairness to me, it was pretty obvious he was going to win nationally, and it was also very obvious he was not going to win my very, very, very deeply red state at the time. So I didn't bother. By 20...
Yeah, so that's a very common sentiment. I won't address it just yet, because I want to wait until he talks about the more recent stuff.
12, I didn't really give a shit about Obama anymore. You guys probably don't... I had Obama derangement syndrome. You guys probably don't really understand what it was like at that time, unless you were of voting age in 2008. Then you probably know that Obama was so exciting, so dynamic, so compelling, so interesting. Seemed like he was going to be such a breath of fresh air, and he turned out to be such a tepid, centrist, nothing, sort of lame duck president.
Yeah, I actually was a conservative back then, so I had bet somebody I think I was in, I want to say 6th grade. I bet somebody, one of my peers, $10 that John McCain would win. Why did I make that bet? Because I was very certain that Obama was an agent of the devil. This is not a joke. This is real. And being as such, I was convinced that God would intervene and not let John McCain lose. That was my mentality back then. If you needed any indication of where I'm coming from and how far I've come on my political journey.
Accomplish much in his tenure other than a gift to the insurance industry, masquerading as some sort of advancement in terms of healthcare.
Hot Vara.
You know, so I didn't really care if he
leftists.
won or if Mitt Romney won. I guess I marginally preferred Obama, but not enough to actually bring my ass into the voting booth. So then by 2016, I still didn't vote because I found the entire prospect of voting completely meaningless by that point. I totally had, if you ever watched the George Carlin stand-up routine about the meaninglessness of voting, I was 100% on board with that at the time. Also, I totally despise Hillary Clinton. So even with all that's happened, and I know this is going to be something that people shake their fist at me for, but I'm still not convinced she would have been a better choice than Trump. I mean, we'll never be able to look into that crystal ball and see into the alternate universe where she won, so it's kind of a moot point, but I do think that she was so saber-rattly, and some of the military actions that she was talking about were so provocative that I feel like she might have gotten America entrenched in yet another war. And, you know, as much as I hate Trump and as much as I think that his little pathetic failed insurrection on January 6th was an embarrassment to this country, I would take that over a bunch more American and foreign lives being lost in a meaningless conflict over resources any day. So
that is an interesting thought. Imagine how different our country would be right now if Hillary had won. I don't know if he's correct or not. I don't know if she would have started some horrible conflict overseas and killed a bunch of brown people. Probably, considering what Obama was known for. I truly, honestly have no clue, and it's not really worth discussing except for, you know, just speculating about how the world might be if she did win. Which she should have, by the way, if we're going by popular vote. And that's what people were upset about, but whatever.
That's where I stand on that. In 2020, I voted for Biden because same reason I voted for Kerry.
That literally happened under Trump. He bombed civilians overseas and massively increased drone strikes. That is true. He had more drone strikes in 4 years than Obama had in 8. So I don't think that Hillary would have done a worse job than Trump. Another part of that is the president, first and foremost, is optically important. You know what I mean? At least in terms of social progressivism. Who we have leading our country in terms of optics is extraordinarily important. Biden, as far as I know, unless you count the days that Trump was quote unquote pro-LGBT, big, you know, no shot on that anymore. But Biden is the first very openly trans positive president. And I think that in itself is reason enough to go out to bat for him because he's done more than progressives have expected him to do, quite frankly. It's not enough, but he's done more than we expected. And I'll let him keep going. I have more points to make about that, but we'll get to it.
In 2004, just wanted to get the bad guy out of office. Trump's the bad guy, get him out. He was such an embarrassment, such a disgrace. I wanted him gone at any cost.
That's why a lot of people
vote for dementia-addled Grandpa Joe. So for only the second time in my life, I voted for president. Once again, it was the lesser of two evils. I voted for Biden, just trying to put a damper on Trump and the threat to civil liberties that he represented. So in the last 2 decades, I've only voted in 2 presidential elections. Once for John Kerry, once for Joe Biden. I've abstained 3 times, once out of complete apathy, 2 times out of disgust. This time around, I've decided I'm probably going to vote for a third party. Now, I don't know who yet, but it's the only thing I haven't done yet, so it has a novelty factor to it. Obviously.
Okay, so there's more to this than just it's the only thing he hasn't done yet. He has some logic, although it is flawed logic, and we'll get to it.
I've never voted for a Republican either. I figure I can do that when I'm in my 70s.
I have.
My mind is basically
that's one thing I have on him is I did vote for Trump in 2016. Not proud of it, but there you go.
Tapioca pudding. You know, I find it so strange that so much online political discourse is centered around voting for the president when, you know, as far as I'm concerned, it's probably one of the most meaningless things a person can do politically.
No, not by any stretch of the imagination is that true. You are literally inputting your opinion as to who should be leading the entirety of the most powerful nation on earth. That is not insignificant at all, okay? And especially, by the way, as a massively influential content creator. I mean, I know it doesn't seem like it. We don't see a whole lot of TJ like going around, but look at his channel. Like he's got 969,000 subscribers, bordering on 1 million. Okay. He's been around for a long ass time and he's still got a lot of people who watch his videos. I mean, 21K views, 21K. So imagine all 21,000 people who watch this, this is not the case, but you know, let's take half of it. Let's say that 12,000 people who watch this, right? Is that half? No, I can't do math. Let's say 10,000. 10,000 people. He ends up convincing, you know what, voting's useless. I'm going to vote third party and you should too. Let's say 5,000 people, 2,000. I don't want him convincing his massive audience, far more massive than mine at least, that maybe it's not the best idea to vote Dem, okay? But you know what? Let's hear him out. Let's listen to his logic.
States in this country are solidly blue, solidly red. So even if you buy into the idea that these parties are different enough to make it worth your while to vote for them, you still have to reckon with the nasty fact that your vote probably isn't really going to count for much unless you happen to live in a swing state. And in 2020,
Florida was a swing state 2 election cycles ago. In fact, was it a swing state? I don't think it was a swing state during the 2020 election, but definitely before that. 2012, 2016, swing state. All right. Look at it now. It is a deep red cluster, a hellhole that from which everyone is trying to escape. It's not even just trans and gay people anymore. That place is going under, literally and figuratively.
24, there's really only expected to be 6 swing states. Granted, things could change, but as of now, Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia.
Yeah, Florida was the decision battleground of Bush v. Gore. Very good point. All right. Ohio is still a swing state, technically, I think, but it's also turning red. Guess what's not helping? People who would have otherwise voted Democrat voting third party. Okay? Not helping.
Argument. And I should specify, I think this is an argument that happens mostly on the left or like among left-leaning liberals and stuff. Republicans don't really have this debate as much, as far as I know. A lot of people on the left have big problems with the vote blue no matter who thing, but very few people on the right have problems with vote red till I'm dead. Then again, you know, to be fair, I do suppose the Libertarian Party is a fairly right-wing party in many senses, and it is the...
That's actually changing a little bit. I did see a tweet today. Let me pull it up real quick. Cat Turd. And if you don't know who Cat Turd is, he is a big Elon Musk simp, and also Elon Musk is a simp for him. And he says, "Dear loser Republican Party, you have officially pushed us too far with your weakness. I, along with millions of others, will never vote for your party again, except on a very rare occasion. You are spineless, worthless neocon, do-nothing cowards. You've given zero value to your base. Stop sending me requests to give you money. You'll never get a dime from me. After 40 years, I'll be registering as an independent this week. Good luck at winning in the future without the America First MAGA vote. I'll vote for Trump, but never any one of you useless cowards again. And save your breath telling me this will be a vote for Democrats. What difference does it make? They're actually arresting their political opponents, and you won't even give Adam Schiff a $5 fine or impeach anyone for anything. You're utterly useless." Now, he still says that he'll vote for Trump, okay? So even in this admission, people who don't want to vote Republican anymore, who are disillusioned, with the party, are still going to vote for Trump because he's a populist. He's got all the riz. He's hilarious. And they love him, all right? So even this guy's still going to vote for Trump. But I am pleased that it seems like, you know, Cat Turd's not a small Twitter user, okay? Like, that's a pretty big deal. And I really do hope that that keeps spreading among the Republican Party, not just because I want the conservative politicians to lose, but this could be a good first step for a lot of these people to realize that the Republicans do not have their best interest at heart and actually start opening their eyes and looking at the problems in front of them, the ones that actually affect their lives, and understanding who is going to fix those problems.
The third largest party in America. I mean, a huge drop off after the first two.
Yeah, it's just
the
the Trump party, exactly.
So I guess that I can't say that, you know, there's no one on the right that's dissatisfied with the Republicans, but you know, I just don't see the debate happening as much on their side.
That is true.
I think that most people who just kind of don't see any point in the elections, they end up just not voting at all. That's what I've kind of done when I found it impossible to care. And in 2024, I'm still finding it very difficult to care. And I know that for a lot of people, that probably doesn't make sense. You know, we got this radical right-wing Supreme Court making decisions that anyone left of Goebbels would probably find regressive. We have a GOP that seems like it's thirsty for LGBT blood. Like, the wolves are at the door, and for many lefties, not voting or voting third party seems like you're opening the door to just let the wolves in, and you're just saying, fuck it, you know?
That is
but
undeniably true, by the way. You are, okay?
I think that there's another way to look at it. I think that, you know, if you look at the status quo and you ask yourself, how did we get here? And how do we get out of here? You might, well, you know, I'm probably getting ahead of myself a little bit. So let's kind of define what the status quo is that we're talking about in terms of these presidential elections and the politics that surrounds them. Okay. So, you know, two parties, the Republicans, Democrats, obviously have the presidency on lockdown. You know, they are the ones in the fight. Others are allowed on the ballot if they jump through the proper hoops, but ultimately the population has been convinced that voting third party is throwing away their vote.
It is.
This has been, you know, this is a self-fulfilling prophecy because it's not actually true.
All right, so self-fulfilling prophecy. I've been waiting for those magic words because I want to go back to a previous part of the video, not too long back here. He says his claim is, and I'm pretty sure that they go by any all pronouns. I apologize if not, but he says that voting third party is thought to be a self-fulfilling. Sorry, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that voting third party is thought to not work. So let's replay this.
Probably one of the most meaningless things a person can do politically. Like, most states in this country are solidly blue, solidly red. So even if you buy into the idea that these parties are different enough to make it worth your while to vote for them, you still have to reckon with the nasty fact that your vote probably isn't really going to count for much.
Interesting. that you would say that, because that's a self-fulfilling prophecy if ever I've seen one. Because it's demonstrably false, right? Like Florida flipped red. Ohio is flipping red as we speak. If we keep letting this go on, I'm not convinced that things are going to go in a positive direction because of that. We can't just let it go, okay? Like it's silly. You should still vote for Democrats even if you're a deep red state. Yes, exactly. And you should convince your friends to vote. The big part of this is not the vote itself. It's not your vote. You should still go do it, but it's not your vote. It's convincing your friends and family to vote, okay? It's getting as many people active as possible to go to the polls, all right? It's organizing. That's the important part. And TJ, one of the most influential YouTubers that has ever and probably will ever exist, frankly, is using his incredible influence and push to tell people not to vote Dem. And I don't like that. I don't like that. Okay? I love you, TJ, but like, come on, dude. Anyway, let's go back to where we were.
They are the ones in the fight. Others are allowed on the ballot if they jump through the proper hoops, but ultimately the population has been convinced that voting third party is throwing away their vote. This has been, this is a self-fulfilling prophecy because it's not actually true. I mean, it's never happened. A third party's never won, I guess. But, if a majority of people in key states like voted for the Green or voted for Libertarian, there's no actual mechanism that like prevents them from taking office. There's no act.
So anybody who thinks that in this fashion that, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, you're not technically wrong about the third party winning thing, okay? But it's also a self-fulfilling prophecy to say if you're in a deep red or deep blue state, you might as well not vote because nothing's happening there. And that's also demonstrably false, as we discussed. So the fact that both of these are self-fulfilling prophecies, now we have to water this down to, okay, so it's true that voting third party could technically result in a third party win. You'll have a higher chance of getting a third party in there if you vote for a third party than if you don't vote for a third party. But I ask you this, what are the odds of a third party actually winning versus what are the odds of a red state, a deep red state, let's say, turning blue, right? Let's take Texas, for instance. I don't know how deep red that is. I know that a lot more Dems live there than Republicans, but because of gerrymandering and voting suppression and etc., it ends up being red most of the time. But let's say it doesn't turn out that way. Let's say, let's ask ourselves, what are the odds of Texas going blue versus Texas going third party, right? Which one do you think is more likely? Hopefully I don't have to answer this for you.
Actual thing that would stop that from happening. Like their candidate would become president. There's nothing actually stopping a third party from winning other than the widespread belief that they just can't. So it is.
No, it's also the fact that Dems and Republicans have the most institutional power, the most funding, the most drive, right? They have corporate backing. Third parties simply don't. Okay, this is always going to come down to Democrat versus Republican. And that's why we have to make the more dangerous party irrelevant. We must make Republicans irrelevant. If it were a Democrat versus a Democrat in the general, that's amazing progress. Like if we could get to a point where Democrats now have to split into two separate factions, into a more progressive and a less progressive Democrat party, with the baseline, the rightmost baseline being the current status quo of the Democratic Party, imagine how much better off we would be as a nation. Like that would be an enormous shift.
It's the very definition of a self-fulfilling prophecy. The two main parties, once again, Republicans, Democrats, I don't know why I need to specify. Everybody knows. They're barely different on a number of issues like foreign policy, Wall Street regulation, immigration, even.
Okay, he's going to talk about a lot of economic policies and also Israel I don't know if he brings up Israel, but they are very similar on those. Don't get me wrong, okay? They are very similar on foreign policy and on a lot of economic policy. But Democrats at least have to be more progressive on social issues such as gay and trans issues, right? Queer issues. They have to at least put on the appeal, right? They got to rizz a little bit. They have to put on a show for us, right? They have to act like they're the progressive party. They are the ones who are going to take care of us, and they have to act like they're going to do that with progressive policies, even if they don't implement them like Biden promised to do with a public option, right? He didn't actually implement that, but he ran on it. And that's still important. Why is that important? Because he won. And the fact that he was able to run with a public option promise and then he won is huge. That's important, okay? The fact that he is a pro-trans president and he won is important. The optics, guys, are important, okay? It shows our corporate betters what we want, all right? The culture that they need to appeal to. And within the current framework of the economy, that is the best shot we have to make them bend to our will. Because at the end of the day, they're nothing without our patronage. right? And our work. So if they can even pretend to be progressive, that's positive. You know, it shifts the culture. And then another part of that, pay attention, because another part of that is if the Democrats have to act, right? Have to act like they're progressive without actually being progressive, let's say on economic issues. It makes it a lot harder to keep out the actual progressives, right? You can sneak in if you're an AOC, if you're a Bernie Sanders, if you're an Ilhan Omar. You can sneak in and you can plant the seeds of your own even more progressive policies right under their noses, because it's hard for a lot of people to tell the difference between who's being sincere and who's not, at least if you're in the institution. If you're a layman, it's usually easier to tell. Even conservatives often like Bernie because they know that he's sincere. You look fresh today? Thank you. I just took a shower and everything in an attempt to make me less tired. It didn't work that well, but here we are. All right, let's keep going.
Issues that they seem like there might be some difference, like policing and guns. Difference between them is kind of marginal at best. Their rhetoric may be different, but when it comes down to the brass tacks of policy, they kind of behave in virtually the same manner. Like the true difference between the parties, and therefore the areas that they both would like us to be most focused on as voters, are, you know, like social issues. Like Republicans.
That is true. And those are important, by the way. Very important.
This vision of America, like they want this traditionalist structure that harkens back to the 1950s ideal with the nuclear family, predominantly Christian, predominantly white, predominantly English speaking. And the Democrats, they want it more like a rainbow coalition. We all love each other despite our differences. All races live in harmony. LGBTQ people are every bit as valid as heterosexual people. We all hold hands. We all sing Kumbaya. We are the world. It's a beautiful day. You know, but at the end of the day, neither party's policies actually reflect any genuine desire to realize these visions that they've laid out to their respective electorates, right? Because that's like strictly campaign pablum. I mean, like if Republicans really wanted to bring back the 1950s, they'd want to bring back the economics of the 1950s. Because like the biggest impediment to a single breadwinner household these days is not feminism. It's not some decline of moral values. It's the economic reality that most people can barely afford to, you know, support themselves with a blue collar job.
He is right about that part. But one thing I want to say is if I have the choice between living in a capitalist hellhole that is queer inclusive versus a capitalist hellhole that is not queer inclusive, to me, that's a pretty easy choice, you know? Like, if I have to pick one corporate shill that's not going to lynch me over being bi and another one that will, why would I pick the latter? Why not the former? It doesn't make any sense. Democrats aren't doing enough for queer people, but they're doing better than Republicans. It's like I said, the reason that rainbow capitalism exists is because the rainbow, queer people, LGBTQ, whatever you want to call it, became popular. And corporations understood, okay, we have to start selling shit to gay people, to the gays, right? And that's good, by the way. That's good. We should want that. Because as I said, rainbow capitalism is better than non-rainbow capitalism. It simply is.
Let alone an entire family. If the Democrats really wanted to bring us into this progressive utopia, they wouldn't be passing giant defense spending bills. They wouldn't be signing off on big cash infusions to Wall Street. There wouldn't still be like kids in cages at the border. And there would be landmark anti-discrimination acts pushing back against the slow erosion of rights represented by this new radical Supreme Court. Democrats really don't fight those battles at all. Or when they do, they throw in the towel in the first round, right? Like, you know, we put it to a vote, we lost. Oh, well, you know, the votes aren't there. Well, find them, dude. Like, one and done, that's it? We tried? It's pretty obvious to me that the objective of both these parties is to preserve the status quo. And why wouldn't they want to preserve it? Because it's a status quo where they're in power.
My childhood friend says he's conservative, but says very progressive things and despises Republicans. Most people in America at least, are extremely politically inept. Like, they haven't sat down and actually thought through their positions for more than like 10 minutes at a time. It just doesn't happen.
So, you know, if you were them, you'd probably be trying to preserve it too. It's great for you, not so great for everybody else. And since, you know, both these parties basically represent moneyed interests, corporate power, military power, they really can't center debate issues pertaining to any of those things. They're not ever going to talk about like the massive problems of income inequality in this country other than in the most superficial possible.
Bernie did. A lot. And he had a platform to do it because he ran against Biden. And even if he did not win the nomination, he still put those ideas out there and forced Biden, by the way, to come out with a public option, even if he never instituted it. He forced Biden to put that out there into the political atmosphere. And now that's something that people are talking about. That's good. That's progress. I want you guys to understand. TJ comes off to me as a pessimist, all right? I'm not trying to say that to be mean. I'm just being realistic. And I think, honestly, he'd agree with me to an extent. I don't know if he'd use that term, but I think that he would at least know what I'm getting at and agree. So I tried to take a different approach. Because if you really step back and look at progress in America, we are the most progressive right now. I know it doesn't seem like this, guys, but we are the most progressive now, more progressive now than we have ever been in the history of this nation. All right. Gay people can get married, which wasn't a thing until like 10 years ago. Trans people aren't being, at least, openly and proudly killed in the streets, right? There is legislation trying to come up against them, but it's being blocked, and that's very positive. We're having discussions about trans people. That wasn't always the case. It used to just be you're crazy. Go to a insane asylum. That's what they did. That's what they did if you were trans. They put you in a fucking asylum, okay? If they didn't kill you, by the way, or give you a lobotomy. So I know that it's easy to look around, especially if you're in dire circumstances. I know, and I don't want to minimize your problems, but recall where we come from, okay? On a broad scale, we are doing better than we ever have in the history of this nation. Simply put, okay? That's how it is. And I know that's sad, guys, but it's simply true. If I'm not seen as a conservative by young people in the future, then we're doing something wrong. Exactly. The idea here is to plant the seeds for the trees under whose shade you will never sit. If you cannot commit yourself to that, then you're simply not a leftist, okay? Or at least commit yourself to that idea. I'm not saying you actually have to do anything to be a leftist, but that should be your ideal.
Means, because they can't center that, because if they center that, then they're going to be expected to draw a sharp contrast between themselves on those issues, and they just can't, because no sharp contrast actually exists. So it's just
wrong.
We're going to virtue signal, you're going to virtue signal, and then we're not going to do anything different.
The sharp contrast that exists is that one party is fascist and the other's not. That's a pretty sharp contrast, okay?
So trans rights, obviously big issue right now, tremendously important. Black rights, tremendously important. Civil liberties in general, tremendously important to all of us. Important to humanity, important to the future of a free society. But you know what, like who they're not really all that important to is like the top 1%, the military and corporate elites, the people in positions of wealth.
That's not necessarily true. The top 1% has plenty of gay and trans people. Like, there are top 1%ers who vote Democrat, largely because Democrats still hold the corporate interest, but at the very least, they have the choice between fascism and not fascism, and a lot of them pick not fascism. Probably most of them, if I had to be real, because even in the top 1%, they know what conservatives want to do to trans people. A lot of them do. And gay people, frankly. And black people to a certain extent. And certainly other brown people like Hispanic, okay? They know. So not all of them are evil. Most of them, the vast majority of them, do vote along corporate interest. And you can still do that while voting Democrat. So that shouldn't even really be a factor to me, all right? It should not be a factor. Sometimes I genuinely wonder if it would be easier to be conservative. Having been conservative, it is both easier and not easier. The easier part is you don't really have to think too hard about your politics. It just kind of, you accept the world for what it is. You say it never can get better. It never will get better. And so just accept it. Life's not fair, blah, 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 pull up your bootstraps. So that part's easy. The hard part is, how do I want to put this? Kind of arguing that against somebody who's liberal or left of liberal. Not so much liberal. Usually you have to argue with somebody who's left of liberal, and substantiating that worldview, and also reconciling it with your religious beliefs. Because if you are a Christian, like I grew up Catholic, right? Then you have to reconcile that with what you believe about Jesus and God and their all-loving nature. And there were a lot of questions that I had, and this is part of the thing that led me to leftism. Is why don't conservatives care about the poor people? Why don't conservatives want equal rights for women and minorities? They'll say they do, but they clearly don't. Why do they make light of the fact that women, I think 1 in 3 women have been sexually assaulted? Like, that's insane. They make light of that, though. They don't care. These real issues, these real problems, conservatives simply don't care about. So if you just ignore them and act like they don't exist, then that's easy. But as a political person who always has been political and who probably always will be, all right, I was realizing, unlike my less political conservative counterparts, that shit wasn't adding up, And that was the hard part, is reconciling that. And it's very hard to do that and then also stay conservative once your eyes have been opened. You know what I mean? Anyway.
Wealth and power and near infinite privilege. They don't have to worry about any of those things
Pen.
because they already sort of exist in their own separate society with its own separate set of rules. They're kind of quarantined away from the average people. They get to live in a bubble that's very different than the rest of this country, where the rules are different and they're sort of blissfully unconcerned with our petty struggles. And they own both parties. Because, think about it. If you or I want to talk with the president, We could try with all our might to get an audience with him, and it would almost certainly never happen. But if any billionaire in this country wants to meet with the president, they can. Like, oh, how's your Tuesday? Money opens the doors of access. Money gets you into the senator's ear. Money gets big government subsidies passed that wind up in your pocket so that you can get even richer, so that you can buy even more politicians. And guess what? Democrats and Republicans are both on sale. And that's the status quo that prevents any real problems from being solved in this country. And I think most people, at the end of the day, agree with that. Because I've talked.
Yes, but Democrats, again, I want to stress this, they at least have to pretend to care economically about people who are not as economically privileged. Look at Bernie Sanders. He is a very sincere advocate for economic equality. He advocated for Medicare for all, the most extreme version of universal health care, by the way. It is. Medicare for all was the most radical version of healthcare in the entire world, all right, at least up to this point. There is not a single other country who had a more progressive healthcare initiative than that, all right? And he was able to do that while being a very prominent Democratic politician, which should be evidence enough that the Democratic Party can and should be overrun by progressives, okay? Once again, it's very easy to sneak in there as a left of Democrat person and just label yourself a liberal Democrat and play buddy-buddy with some of these people because they all are, even if they're all acting, they'll just assume you are too, even if you're not. And then you get people like Bernie Sanders, who just recently wrote a book talking about how it's okay to be angry about capitalism. Okay? That happened. That is a thing that happened. And that's awesome. And we need more of that. And that's not going to happen if people like TJ, influential as they are telling their base, I'm not going to vote. Fuck it. I'm voting third party. I don't care. I'm sorry, dude. That's stupid. All right?
Talk to people left, right, and center. And, this is one of those popular things you can say in any crowd of people. They all agree. So with that being said, I ask you again, how did we get here? And how do we get out of here? The second question, I think, is the more important, to be honest with you.
I agree.
But, I know we don't get out of here by voting blue no matter who, voting red till we're dead, because that's how we got here.
Okay, but give me a better solution then. And I know what his solution is, and it's not better, but we'll hear him out.
That's exactly what they, the elites, want. They want you to continue to greenlight the political power of their twin parties because they're afraid of losing. You're afraid of losing what little you have. They're afraid of losing your captive.
Yes, actually, I am afraid of losing that. I like my life right now. I enjoy the privileges that I have right now as a result of not living under a fascist dictatorship, okay? I like having democracy, or at least the preface of democracy. At least it's on paper that we live in a democracy. One day it might not, if you let the conservatives roll over you. Okay? Yes, I like those things. Fleeting and sad as it is, I would rather have that than not. All right? The most important thing we can do right now is protect the freedoms that we currently have. Because if they're taken from us, getting them back is a huge, huge problem. And it's not easy. So protect that shit if you have to with your life. All right? Or at least vote. All right? Sorry. I'm getting worked up. I do like TJ still, but this frustrates the hell out of me.
And so they orchestrated this system. They know how it works. They count on it working that way. So am I taking a hardline stance, by the way, of never vote for the lesser of two evils? No, I'm not. If that's the vote you feel like you need to cast, okay. I get it. I've done it. I may do it again. But what I am telling you is the only reason that the lesser evil is less evil in the first place is just to make it seem like you have a choice. At the end of the day, the evils are pretty much equal. The differences between them only exist.
I know I'm not going to harp on it too much more, but you can play on that, right? They have to pretend. So you can use that to your advantage and sneak in your progressive policies like Bernie did.
This to make you sweat and
others,
to keep you voting for the political duopoly.
Bernie.
So, let's say your tireless commitment to this principle of vote blue no matter who wins the day forever. Let's say it's a rip-roaring success and there's never another Republican president again.
Good.
As far-fetched as that is. It's all Democrats from here on out. Does that solve the country's problems?
That's not far-fetched, by the way. If Biden wins this next presidential election, that could happen. Because there's not going to be another candidate like Trump. It's just not going to happen. And I don't see any up-and-comers who have even close to the riz that Trump has right now. All right? It's just not going to happen. Now, am I saying that a Republican will never win again? No, I'm not saying that. And frankly, I think it would be difficult to ensure that because Democrats don't want that either. They like the duopoly, most of them. All right? That's true. But if you continue to show them that, hey, we're not putting up with fascist bullshit, they're not going to run on fascism. The right is going to be forced to either lean left more, appeal to more moderate people, thus shifting I can't think of the word for it, the window, you know what I mean, the political window. Somebody knows it. The Overton window, thank you. Shifting the Overton window to the left, right? Or their other option is they can simply go full ape shit, ape brain, and just throw democracy out the window, which they can only do, by the way, if they're in power to do it. So don't let them be in power to do that. That would be dumb. That would be the dumb thing to do.
Does it even have a prayer of doing so? And if not, what's really the point of it? But
It
let's
does have
put
a prayer
fairy
of doing
tales
so.
aside, because there's no way it's just going to be Democrats from here on out. The reality is that no matter how you cling to your...
See, that's not true. That's not true. That's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Once again, okay? You want to talk about self-fulfilling prophecies, TJ? Like, here you go. You know, it could happen. We could just keep voting Democrats into office in perpetuity, and they could keep getting more and more and more progressive. All right? Like, hello? I thought we were against self-fulfilling prophecies here. Okay.
Orthodoxy.
I'm not in the best mood
It's
today.
always better to vote for the lesser of two evils. The Republicans will have the White House again someday, and it won't be long. It'll be soon. It's going to be 2024 or 2028 or 2032. Traditionally, this country has bounced back and forth. So it's likely we're going to continue to do so. So really, the most you can realistically hope for with this strategy is to...
Another part of this that it's a problem that I take issue with is that's not true, because boomers are dying and Zoomers are getting older. They're becoming a voting age. A lot of them are going to be voting in this next election. And after that, Gen Alpha. All right. And the thing about the younger generations is they're overwhelmingly more progressive than their older counterparts. And why is that? Because they see the issues around them. They're more aware of it because it was forced on them. I don't have the same opportunities that my dad had. Okay. In many ways, you know, people who grow up. Here's the thing about my dad. Let me highlight something for you. So my dad grew up in a very underprivileged situation. All right. He was not in the best of situations. He had 7 brothers and sisters, and they were not well off. Okay. And he grew up and he struggled, but he was eventually able to buy his first house. All right. I don't know what he did for work. I think he was a bartender. He made quite a bit in tips, but he was able to buy a house. Okay. It was a small one, but he bought one. He was a realtor for a while. He tried to start his own realtor business, and he was able to purchase house after house after house. We bounced around a lot just because, but it's beside the point. Point is, he is currently also a homeowner. All right. And he was able to do that because of the economic opportunities back then that were available to him that are not currently available to me. I was barely able to clinch a 13.5K bank loan recently when I tried for 16,000. Okay. I got 13.5K under my name only. Before that, it was a joint loan with my mom that I had to have jointed with her because her credit was better. Her income was better. So that was a necessity. This time around, I'm a $40 an hour nurse working 36 hours a week. My credit score is pretty good. It could be better. It's not quite 700, but it's pretty good. And I was only able to clinch 13.5K. I don't know how much you guys know about what houses cost. It's not enough for a house, okay? Now, my brother was able to purchase one. How did he do that? He is also a nurse. He was a nurse before he could drink legally. And for years, that crazy son of a bitch worked both day and night shifts with a heavy differential. He was making less than I do on paper, but with the bonuses and the differentials, he was able to make out pretty damn good. All right. But the flip side of that is he was working like 50, 60 hours a week. You know, he didn't have time to do anything, and he was in school at the same time. So yeah, he was able to purchase a house, but he's still paying it off. All right. And it's really not that. I mean, it's a nice place. Don't get me wrong. It's a very nice place. But it's not a big house, okay? It's not like that white suburban picket fence house that you know, and I don't want to say love. I hate that shit, but you know, it's not that. It's a pretty modestly sized place, all right? And that's simply not something that most people can do anymore. So younger generations are seeing this. They're going, "What the fuck? Where's the American dream? Mod check, American dream? Like it's not there, man. It's not there." So they're more politically aware than even millennials are, which is good. The more people who are politically aware and active, the better it is for us and the worse it is for the conservatives. And they know that. And that's why they do not want young people, to first of all be able to vote at all. And second of all, be educated about the problems and the history of this country, because they'll vote against the conservatives. And boomers are dying. And that's the main voter base of the conservatives. So for the love of God, go vote Democrat, please. 4 more minutes. Let's go.
To stave off the right for an election cycle or two, but their day will come, as it always does. And if you really want to beat them, not just for 4 years or 8 years, if you really want to beat them once and for all, you're going to need a party of fighters, a party willing to take on the root causes of America's corrosion.
Then
a
go
party
start
willing
it.
to fight.
I love, by the way, I love it when people like TJ, when they're talking about this, they'll say, "Oh, we need a party of fighters. We gotta get a rip roaring party of fighters together." Where is it? Go start it. Why are you sitting here telling people don't vote Democrat? Right? Go vote third party instead. Okay, which third party? You didn't even say which third party, man. You didn't even say which one. So this is a disorganized clusterfuck, if anything. Okay? You don't have a plan. We do. And we'll get to that.
True leftist economic populism, as well as a robust social liberalism. And that party is not, at this point, in its current incarnation, the Democratic Party. So, like, I don't know, the way I see it, we either replace the Democrats with a progressive party or we reform the Democrats into a progressive party. And to my way of thinking, the only way you can really reform them into a progressive party is by starving establishment candidates of power, which means starving them of votes.
Wrong. Wrong. Very wrong. You transform them by overtaking them. The Democratic Party is not one person, okay? It's multiple people. Multiple old people, mostly, who one day will die. And when they do die, I am hoping that the younger people who are making up that party use that power that they've now attained from those old fucks to make substantive change in this country. And they can only do that if we support their efforts now. It is simply not in the cards to vote for a third party.
If the Democrat running isn't at least as left as Bernie Sanders,
it is accelerationism,
who is a centrist in my book, and I'm sure many of your books as well, then don't vote for them. Because the only way Democrats will realize...
By the way, I missed this the first time. He directly said don't vote for them. So, no. F that, TJ. And quite frankly, f you for saying that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's just how I feel. F you for saying that, TJ.
Realize they need to change is if all of their establishment candidates keep on losing. If progressive candidates win for the Democrats and establishment candidates lose for the Democrats, they're going to stop putting up establishment candidates. Because even though they love all that corporate money, it doesn't do them much good at the end of the day if they don't have any power. Because what those moneyed interests are buying from Democrats is influence and power. So if we stop playing the game and stop giving power to these Democrats who then sell it to the moneyed interests in the first place, then, hey, they don't have anything to bargain with anymore.
So we've seen this before where Democrats will lose elections, like locally and on the state level. And what they end up doing is going to the right. Because in their heads, it's, that's how we get our Joe Manchins and our Kirsten Sinemas, right? And Kirsten Sinema is kind of just a grifting piece of shit. But let's take Joe Manchin. He's a good example. These types, there's probably more to this, but just bear with me. These types see that the conservatives win in certain areas, and they decide, maybe my policies should be more conservative. Maybe I should appeal to the conservative base with conservative policy. Because the Dems lost. Now, is that what you want? Do you want to convince the Democrats that the American people want conservative policies? Because I sure as hell don't. That would be a bad thing. Because conservative policies are regressive. They hurt people. They kill people. They're fascist anymore. So no, let's not do that. Let's not yield to that. Okay? That's not the priority. Everybody wants to beat the liberals. Oh my God, these dumb liberals, these corporate shills, the liberals. Oh my God, they're all the same. No, they're not. No, I'm sorry. If you still think after seeing Florida that liberals are the same as conservatives, I just don't know what to tell you. You're drinking bleach. Stop drinking that. Put the jug down. It's the bleach laden with lead is done. Stop damaging your brain, okay?
So they would rather join us in a progressive cause, but it's going to take starving them. It's going to take removing power from them. It's going to take saying, hey, if you put up a Joe Biden, if you put up a John Kerry, we're not going to just say, oh, well, lesser of two evils and vote for them. Because every time we do that, we're just saying, like, this is fine. You can continue to do this. You can continue to be this way. And it's not fine. They can't continue to do this. They can't continue to be this way because the cost of them being that way is that we have no representation on a whole slew of important issues. And the cost of us having no representation on a whole slew of important issues is the existential, an existential threat to the vox populi, everyone in this country, except for the rich.
Yeah, and the solution to that is not yielding on the few important issues that you do have representation on, like trans rights. Okay? Joe Biden, whether you like it or not, is a vocal supporter of trans rights and climate change initiatives. Let's take that, for example. Conservatives want to let the oil companies run rampant. Democrats at least have to pretend to care about that. They have to pretend that they're doing shit to stop it, all right? Once again, if they're forced to pretend, that makes it all the easier for us to sneak someone in there under the guise of they're pretending, but they're being sincere. And that has happened, and that will continue to happen. There are good people in office right now, and there should be more, and we'll get them there. But it's not going to happen under a fascist dictatorship.
They're the only ones who make out okay if we continue on the course that we're on now. So if you want to change course, I don't see any other way. And I understand that there's problems with the strategy. Of course there are.
Yeah,
because if you apply that kind of pressure to the Democrats, you're basically throwing cycles to the Republicans.
Yes.
And obviously,
to the
especially
fascists.
if you are LGBT or black or any other sort of minority, you're rightly reluctant to do that. But I ask you, how else do we solve this then? If someone else...
Okay, so this is the question that I mentioned earlier. He said I'll let him...
has a viable strategy to solve
Let's
this
finish the
problem,
video.
you know, where we get rid of the duopoly without ceding ground to the right, at least for a time. Look, I'm all ears on that. I'd love to hear the plan. But as of now, I don't think there is a plan, because I've tried to figure it out. I'm not saying that I'm the smartest fucking guy on the face of the earth. I'm not saying that if I can't figure it out, no one can. If someone can, I'm willing to follow that person to the end of the earth. But I've thought about it, and I don't see a way. I don't see any other way. Either the blue dragon needs to be punished until it obeys us, or it needs to be slaughtered so that a more powerful dragon can take its place and present a new and more substantive threat to the red dragon. Sorry for the dragon analogy. It's kind of an old meme. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I really appreciate you listening to this ramble. I appreciate hearing from you guys on this subject. I'm the Amazing Atheist. Peace.
Okay, so let's get into the solution, because I don't like TJ's solution. I think it's stupid. I actually wrote some notes, so let me pull them up. Let's see. Here's the strategy. Vote for the most progressive Democratic candidates. Organize locally. People underestimate the power of local organizing. And I stand by this, by the way. I'm reading off my list, but I mentioned this before. Getting organized in your local community, something that I need to do more of, is so vital and so underrated. I mean, why do you think Matt Walsh, internationally famous, friends with J.K. Rowling, why do you think that he squatted in fucking Florida so that he could speak at their local school board meetings? Okay, he literally bought property there so that he could. Why would he do that? Because local organizing is extremely important. Okay, I've spoken at meetings before. They're very, they're open. You can just go there and speak at them. Look them up. Okay, look them up and tell your representatives what you want, the issues that you care about. You get your friends to go with you. Join the DSA. Do something. Okay, push community to support progressive policies. Bully politicians in city council and school board meetings. I went viral. Yeah. Here's another good point. I went viral just by showing up at the Ohio School Board meeting, a Board of Education meeting, wearing a pro-trans shirt. I went viral. I'm wearing it now, actually, as it happens. That was an accident, okay? I don't know how else to put this, all right? Like, we can't punish the Democratic Party at a time when they are our only defense against falling into a fascist state. That's not a good idea, okay? So let me end this on a positive note, because like I said, I am trying very hard lately. I know this sounds stupid, but One Piece actually has me kind of changing the way that I do things, because I feel like I came into politics on the leftist side, at least, very negative, looking at the world as though, oh, it'll never get better. Oh, it's so doomer, blah, blah, blah. No, don't look at the world that way. Don't look at your country that way. Okay. Your country's not doomed. It's not never going to get better. It can get better. It has gotten better, and it will continue to get better. But it's not going to do that if you let the conservatives have their way, because they're the fascist party now. They are the party of fascists. They always have been, but it's open and blatant now. And I fear that if they win in 2024, it's over. Democracy could very well end. Will it happen? I don't know. Is it likely to happen? Probably not, but we can't count on that. We've seen what these monsters are capable of. Look at Florida. Once again, if you have any doubt, Florida is a microcosm of what this entire nation will be if we let the conservatives have their way. And I don't want that. And you shouldn't either. So it's stupid to just roll over and let them have it. We can't do that. So I know people are tired. I know people are scrounging for something. Anything that's better than the Democratic establishment party. It's so frustrating. I get it. I've been there. Back when COVID first started, I was one of the I'm not going to vote for Biden because Bernie got fucked over, blah, blah, blah. I was one of those people, okay? I was a Bernie or buster. I did end up voting for Biden, which I'm thankful that I did. But, I was one of those people, so I've been there. And I do also recognize the fact that my life is in a pretty good spot, all things considered. But like I said, this country has gotten better. It can get better, and it will, as long as we keep on the right track. And we can't do that if we let fascists take over. Third party voting is simply not on the docket. It never will be until we have ranked choice voting. And that's not going to happen until a progressive politician institutes it. I can guarantee you who's not going to make democracy any better is the Conservative Party. The Liberal Party at least has to pretend that they're going to do that. And if they have to pretend to do that, you can sneak somebody in who actually will. So that's my plan. That's my plan. Organize, vote, tell my measly follower base that I have, as compared to TJ's at least, to vote. Try to convince him and his follower base to vote Democrat and not third party, because third parties simply do not have a chance in hell. You know, he says that the third party, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, they'll never have a chance. Okay, if you increase the odds of the third party winning, 0 times 1,000 is still 0. It's simply not going to happen. And I want to point out, TJ, you're not doing the work to make it happen. You're not. You are simply tired. And I didn't want this video to be mean, but I'm in a bad mood, so it's going to be a little mean. You're just tired, man. I'm sorry. I get it. But you're not putting in the legwork to actually make a third party viable. You're not. So stop telling people to vote third party. Stop it. It's not going to work. And until I see you putting in that footwork, I'm going to keep telling you to stop saying that. If you don't want to vote, that's your deal. But for the love of God, at least tell your fans, even if you're, too lazy, whatever you want to call it, to vote. This isn't about your personal vote. This is about your fan base. I'm worried about the thousands upon thousands of people who watch you and who listen to you and take what you have to say seriously. It's important that they all vote, all right? It's a big number of people, more than I can pull in right now. So I'm hoping that, if he doesn't respond to me, he'll at least see this or take it into consideration, understand the flaws in his own logic, and, just consider the alternative to the Democrats winning, the alternative. Because the alternative is the fascist winning, and you don't want that. You don't want that. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you want to see more. Hit the notification bell to be notified when I upload. You can join my channel membership at youtube.com/AlecGuntherTTV/join for only 99 cents a month. That's less than the price of a blowjob from your mom. You can be part of the channel membership program, and you will get early access content, as well as a sweet badge next to your name and exclusive emojis in the comments that nobody else gets. Thank you again, and I will see you all in the next video.